Middleware. You've heard of it, right? Of course you have. It's one of the most common and honestly most elegant architectural patterns in backend development. It promises us clean, reusable, modular code. But what if that elegance comes at a hidden cost? Let's peel back the layers and see what's really going on.
On paper, the idea is just beautiful. A request comes into your server, it passes through a middleware layer, or maybe a few of them that handle stuff like logging or authentication. Then, it finally hits your main business logic, the handler, and a response goes out. Simple, linear, clean. What's not to love? And that right there, that's the magic trick. It's why this pattern is so popular. The separation of concerns is just perfect. Your handler only has to worry about its one specific job, while all that common boilerplate stuff is handled by these neat, tidy, independent layers.
And there it is. That's the question at the heart of this whole thing. What happens when it's not just one or two simple layers anymore? What happens when it's 5 or 10 or even more? Well, that simple, elegant pipeline starts to tell a very, very different story.
So, before we get into the problems, let's actually appreciate why we all fell in love with middleware in the first place. Its promise is all about making our lives easier with modularity and reusability, and you know what? For good reason.
I mean, just look at this list. These things are perfectly suited for middleware. Think about it. Logging, authentication, rate limiting. These are what we call cross-cutting concerns. You want to apply them to a bunch of different endpoints without copying and pasting code everywhere. It's a perfect fit.
And make no mistake, this isn't some niche fringe idea. The biggest names in the Node.js world, we're talking Express, Koa, NestJS, they are fundamentally built around the concept of a middleware pipeline. It is the default way of thinking for millions of developers.
Okay, so we've established the promise. It's elegant, it's reusable, but in a real, live production system, that elegance can start to break down and create a hidden and very real problem.
The core issue here is something called fragmentation. Now, this doesn't mean your code is messy. In fact, your code might look incredibly clean. Each file does just one thing. The problem is that the runtime behavior, what actually happens when a request hits your server, is now scattered across all those different files, making it almost impossible to see the whole picture at once. And this fragmentation leads to 4 huge problems. First, your control flow is now hidden. You can't just read the main handler anymore to know what's going on. Second, the order of your middleware suddenly becomes critically important, and changing it can break things in subtle, spooky ways. Third, debugging turns into an absolute nightmare of stepping through layer after layer after layer. And finally, each one of those layers adds a little bit of runtime overhead, which really starts to add up.
And this is where we see this massive difference between how we learn about patterns in tutorials versus how they actually hold up under the intense pressure of a real production environment.
This table right here illustrates that shift in mindset perfectly. A beginner or someone in a tutorial asks, is it elegant? Is it modular? But a veteran engineer, the one who's been woken up at 3 a.m. to fix a production outage, asks totally different questions. They ask, what's the latency cost? How predictable is this thing? And how in the world do I debug it when everything's on fire? How visible is the request lifecycle? The priorities are worlds apart.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Middleware is a fantastic tool when it's used to observe a request. Like for logging or tracing, it's just watching. The danger zone is when you start embedding your core business logic into the pipeline. That's when the whole system starts becoming a black box.
Okay, let's make this concrete, because this isn't just a theoretical problem. I want to walk you through a cautionary tale of how a system slowly degrades, not with a bang, but with a whisper.
So, imagine an API. It starts simple. Then you add logging. Cool. Then distributed tracing, then body parsing, schema validation, authentication, then role-based authorization, rate limiting. Oh, someone adds feature flag checks, then request normalization, and finally, response formatting. Before you know it, a single request has to fight its way through 10 different layers just to get to the real work.
And what's the result? While you're looking at your performance metrics, you know the core database query should only take 20 milliseconds, but the total response time is 120 milliseconds. Where did the other 100 milliseconds go? As this chart shows, it got eaten alive by the cumulative toss to that bloated middleware pipeline, death by 1,000 cuts. And here's the most insidious part of it all. The system never had a catastrophic failure. It didn't just crash and burn. No, it just got slower. It got harder to debug. It became opaque. The team lost the ability to easily reason about what was happening on any given request.
This all brings us to the key takeaway, a more mature way of thinking about architecture for building systems that can actually last. It's about shifting our priority from that theoretical flexibility to something far more valuable in the real world. So if it's not composability or modularity, what is the single most valuable property you want in your request lifecycle? What should you be optimizing for? It's visibility, plain and simple. The ability for any engineer on the team to look at the code and understand, with minimal effort, the entire journey of a request from start to finish. That is more valuable than any abstract architectural pattern, period.
Because when you lose that visibility, when the request lifecycle just disappears behind layer after layer of abstraction, a very strange thing starts to happen to your job.
You're no longer an engineer building something new. You're an archaeologist, carefully digging through these dusty, forgotten layers of code, just trying to piece together what on earth happened in the past. It's slow, it's painful, and it's incredibly frustrating. So here's the thought I really want to leave you with. Middleware gave us flexibility, and that's a valuable thing. But have we pushed it too far? In our own systems, are we prioritizing that flexibility over the one thing that truly keeps our applications manageable in the long run? And that is visibility.